All right, folks, when it comes to talking almost anything, one of the most informed, enlightened people and just versatile enough to talk about anything and explain it, even though he knows it so intricately, explain it in a very easy to understand way, is my friend Stephen Moore, who is the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. Hello, Stephen.
Hi, Steve. Right back to you.
Yeah.
You're one of my heroes as well.
Well, I love talking to you. You know that. And you want to talk heroes? I just had Willie Randolph sitting here for 2 segments. Yeah, former
baseman.
Yeah,
second baseman for the New York Yankees.
Yeah, and former manager of the Mets and former bench coach for the Yankees when they won with Joe Torre as manager. And
Wow.
if you know a team, maybe the Nationals want a manager down the road. He's dying to get back into managing.
He should. He's a hero of mine as well. How cool is that?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. He was up here, and it was great to see him again. I used to do a lot of stuff with the Yankees in my sports days, so it was good to see him again. Anyway, you wrote a great piece at what was it? The Register, the OC Register, and talking about it's titled "The Morality of Cheap Energy." And why don't you explain what that's all about?
Well, what I was trying to make the case for is that, if you really care about the poor and you want to raise people, not just in the United States, but around the world who are in abject poverty, out of poverty, the number one formula for doing that is by providing them with cheap and abundant and accessible electric power, right? Because electric power is what, it really is the central ingredient to everything that we use, whether it's a cell phone or a washer and dryer, or whether it's a television set, or whether it's a factory. And so the point I was making is that, the left has this assault against, drilling and nuclear power and, natural gas and all of the ways that we get cheap and abundant electricity. Their agenda is to make electric power much more expensive, by making us buy it from things like windmills and solar power, which is extraordinarily expensive. And the point I was making is that is going to hurt the poor way more than it's going to hurt rich people, because the poor are the ones who are going to be priced out of the electricity market.
Yeah, and what is it that people don't understand about that?
Good question. I mean, electric power is the master resource, right? I mean, all other resources really, derive from energy. And, the cheaper the power costs are, the more that people can develop and rise out of poverty. And there's an agenda, it's interesting because this is the elitism of the left. They're saying, oh, well, we're willing to pay more money, for electric power to stop global warming and stop the oceans from rising and all of these other calamities that they're talking about. Yeah, well, look, if you're a millionaire or billionaire, you can afford to pay a little bit more for electricity. But if you're a poor person, that imposes a real hardship on you. And when you look at countries around the world that are really poor, in India or the African countries and so on, to make them, pay much more money for electric power is going to keep them poor for a long, long time to come.
He has a pen, and that report that was issued a couple of weeks ago that all you got to do is open your window, and there's your climate change. You can't deny it because it's raining out, because it's windy out, because it's thundering out. That's your climate change.
It is so amazing because this is a president who came out with this report, and I went through the report and every aspect of it, and it's extraordinary, actually. Almost every line of that is a lie. It says, for example, that there are more hurricanes, there are more tornadoes, that there are more, there are more heat waves, there are more monsoons, and the forest fires are all caused by global warming. When I went through the report, and actually the official government report, Steve, from NASA, from the National Weather Service, and others over the last 100 years, there is no evidence whatsoever that we have in the last decade that they work. Now, how do they get away with it? Let me give you another example. I mean, it really just made me so angry. The president talked about the cold winter, in the Midwest, and said, he talked about, how it used to be. I got it wrong. He said it used to be, they were so cold that the Great Lakes would freeze over, and I was thinking, was he in the Midwest at all this winter? Because you know what, the Great Lakes did freeze over this. You know, you could practically walk from Chicago to Michigan over Lake Michigan. It was so cold for so long.
Well, yeah, it's so false. It's so phony. And the reason I brought it up was because of I'm worried about, you know, they've already knocked effectively the coal industry on its butt.
Yep.
And now, you know, who knows what they're coming after next. The EPA has free reign, and the Supreme Court backs up whatever they do. And so I don't know where they're going to stop.
Well, this is the point, you know, to circle back with what we started on about, you know, the morality of cheap energy. I mean, when you think about it, who are the people who are being victimized by putting these coal plants out of business, by putting coal miners out of business? You can go to whole towns in states like, Kentucky and West Virginia and Ohio and Pennsylvania and even Virginia that have been essentially wiped out because of this, you know, wacko, assault against fossil fuels. And the people who are hurt are people make, you know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year. These aren't rich people, and their whole towns, literally whole towns, have been decimated by this radical environmental agenda.
And Steve, you know, you want to also answer the question coming at it from a different angle of who's hurt. You know what's happening to American eagles and to birds?
Oh,
they're getting slaughtered in so many ways. The windmills are chopping them up, and then those solar panels. There is one kind that shoots.
They're frying them.
That shoots like a laser and fries them. Other kinds look like a pool, and they dive into them and they burn to a crisp.
50-foot high Cuisinarts. You know?
Oh my God! But Steve, if there's an endangered species of smelt, they won't let the farmers have their water in California.
Yeah, so there's a total double standard here. And it's been going on for years and years that anything that's green, we're going to allow to go forward no matter what the environmental costs or the economic costs. And, you know, one of the things people should be worried about when it comes to, like, wind energy is that if we continue to shut down coal-fired plants, electric power plants in the country, I'm going to predict to you something, Steve, and you heard it first here. We are going to have rolling brownouts in this country where people are not going to have electric power, for maybe a few hours or for a few days, because you know what? Wind is intermittent. Yeah,
right,
it looks fine when the wind is blowing. What happens when you don't have a lot of wind? And if you don't have the coal fire plant to back it up, you're not going to have electricity, folks. You're not going to have your cell phone. You're not going to have your iPod. You're not going to have all of these devices that we take for granted because, you know what, they all depend on cheap and accessible power.
Absolutely. Let's turn our attention to this Veterans Administration scandal. You know, the Jay Carney claiming that not only did the president find out about the IRS scandal on television, but now he found out about this watching CNN. And he's tough. He's madder than hell. Madder, not mad as, but madder than hell. So what does he do? Nothing. A guy's now gone who was going to leave next week anyway. That's what he's done.
Well, here's the story here. First of all, you've got the VA, which we're learning is basically, you know, so criminally negligent in terms of the quality of care. And I want to make this point, Steve. I feel very strongly about this. The people in America who should receive the very finest, top-rate health care and health and operations and surgeries and get the most latest innovations are our soldiers, are the people who wore the uniform. And instead we're giving them the worst quality of care through the VA. And why is this important? Because, ladies and gentlemen, look at what's happening at the VA hospitals, looking at what's happening at the VA health delivery system. That, Steve Malzberg, is what the entire national health care system is going to look like 5 or 10 years from now if we move forward with Obamacare.
You are
great minds think alike, you know.
But we have
we're seeing the same story. By the way, did you see the story in the New York Times this week about the Medicaid system in states like Michigan, where it's not only twice as expensive per patient, but the death rate is like twice as high as people who have private insurance. We're not doing a favor to people by putting them in the Medicaid system. There's a big difference between having health insurance and having quality health care, and the president doesn't understand that difference.
By the way, one quick one I just saw before I came on. The president of CNN, Jeff Zucker, said he will not be shamed. Country we live in. That's why with all that's going on with the Obamacare and the Medicaid and everything, there's very little, really very little coverage of these personal tragic stories that are taking place.
And by the way, CNN, they covered the Iran-Contra, story every single day, hour after hour.
Well, but of course, because they talk about the double standard. Hey, and you know what? We both spell our name Stephen. So what do you expect?
That's the cool way to do it.
That's it. Hey, Stephen, great. Thank you. Very great talking to you again.
Talk to you next week.
Take care. Stephen Moore, ladies and gentlemen, chief economist at the Great Heritage Foundation, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. When we come back, you know it, you love it, you know what's coming up. It's, it's Give Me Five. So we're going to do that. And then, of course, we have another great hour straight ahead, which will be the final hour of the Tuesday edition, if you're following me. Don't